Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game is Saturday night. Jordan Love and the Packers take on Caleb Williams and the Bears. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game.
That's going to be caught for the touchdown.
NFC North rivals square off in the latest chapter of the NFL's oldest feud. The Packers and Bears in Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Only on Prime. Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 785 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are coming to you about an hour after Duke takes out Louisville 84-73 on the road at the Yum Simmer. A tale of two halves. If you are thinking this is out of order, it's not. We recorded 784 immediately after the game. That was a vibes check. It's like 10 minutes long, so go listen to that. We have Jason on there, who was in a lavatory high above the skies and somewhere in the Atlantic. But now it is time for the real recap of this game. I'm Donald Wine. I'm your host for this episode, as we will have over the next couple of weeks. Scott Rich joins me. Scott, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being Jason for a couple of weeks.
I mean, this is a pretty darn good start to my run on the podcast, my semi-permanent run. I think we'll have to keep this going. Have to keep only doing good vibes recaps while I'm here.
Well, we're not doing it with Jason in the lavatory anymore. I'm just putting my foot down there.
I'm amazed that worked. I'm amazed that we maintained the signal long enough for that to go off semi-successfly.
Yeah. We were able to get at least 45 words out of him before he broke up. But let's start as we always do with the headlines. Of course, Scott, you don't have any headlines. I have all of them. I have 7 that I'm going to read, and thank you to everybody. There was probably 40 people who sent in headlines immediately after the game was over. dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Get it. Next time we won't. Scott and I are not going to be doing the late night thing all the time. Next week we have a couple of very late games, so that'll be something we will adjust to. But here are the ones that I found in short order. Starting with Kendall Bonnet. Kendall Bonnet goes, "Clutch Caleb Clobbers cards." Alliteration is always fun on this pod. Ken Swanner said Duke shoots the feathers off of Cardinals in the second half, which we will talk about, I'm sure. Jim Baumgartner just simply put, dim some halftime adjustments. They certainly were, Jim. Bart Hopper also put, this was a poker game reference. Duke flops, then turns a royal blue flush, sending cards 3s down the river. Great hand. As always, the river turn is always live or die.
That was the perfect timeline of the game, too, in poker analogy. I like that one.
Wrote, Louisville can shoot well in the first half, but Duke fosters confidence to drive home a second half road win. And finally, my man Jeff Lamb just wrote simply, Foster, Australian for sit the F down. Duke owes the ACC. That one was brilliant, Jeff. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to everybody who submitted headlines. Again, dbrpodcast@gmail.com if this is your first time joining the show. We do this after every game, and so you can get your headlines in. Make them short, make them sweet, make them snappy, and maybe they will be read on this show. Let's start with the good, and I'm just, Scott, we're just going to go to the second half. I figure in the first half we'll talk about that a little bit later in the bet. Let's just
Not
talk about
not much good in that first half. I think it's safe to say.
Uh, yeah, but the second half, a whole ton of good. And I want to start with we kind of alluded to it on the vibes check. Caleb Foster, one of his best, if not maybe his best game in a Duke uniform. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. And in the second half, he was the absolute man. He took over at times. When he wasn't scoring, he was finding his teammates. He was making defensive stops. He was showing passion, which I will say was not present in the first half. And just it felt like anytime he drove the lane and rose up with the ball, it was going in. And I love the fact that he was able to step up at a big moment like that, but also he led the charge back. And as I mentioned, it wasn't a fast response to the abysmal first half. It was a slow burn to just try and get our footing, establish the presence that we needed to establish, and Caleb was leading all of that with his ball in the hand, or whether he was off of the side making threes, or whether he was on defense. He was everywhere in the second half, and we don't win without him.
So I think the Caleb Foster that we saw tonight was the final evolved form of Caleb Foster that Duke fans have been wanting to see for the past 3 years. We saw a point guard who was 6'5", who's a strong, built man. He's not Sion James, but he was certainly trying to be with some of those workout videos we saw over the summer. And he was using that to his advantage. He was attacking the rim, and when he got to the rim, when he got to his spot, he wasn't going off of a 1 foot and trying to do a little hook shot, do a fadeaway to get, around the defender. He waited, he got off of 2 feet, and he went through the defenders. And even when he didn't draw fouls, and he was doing a good job drawing fouls, he was making better shots from that 2 feet going through contact rather than trying to play away from contact, which is what Caleb Foster has seemed to do for the first 2.5 years of his Duke career, even when he attacks the rim. That's the Caleb Foster that gives Duke a matchup advantage. That's the Caleb Foster who's a bigger point guard than 9 out of 10 opposition is going to be able to put out there. And that gives Duke the positional size that we were expecting coming into the year. That's what Caleb Foster has always been able to do, and he finally put it together when Duke needed it most today.
And he was tenacious with it, too. It wasn't just, like you said, he's bigger than most guys. It wasn't just him out-bigging his opponent to get to the spots. He had to fight for places. He was running around the floor. Like I said, it was on both ends of the floor. He had every assignment on defense in the second half. But again, he showed that tenacity that would help a lot, especially with help side defense. And the way that he played off of his teammates and his teammates played off of him in the second half, I thought was great. One guy who I thought, he was able to find on more than one occasion was Cam Boozer. And Cam Boozer had a light game, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible that that's not the headline of this game is Cam Boozer. That just shows how spoiled we are as Duke fans right now with what Cam Boozer is doing.
He's 10 for 12 from the floor. And I think the 2-pointer that he missed, most of the game, it was just 1 3 that he had missed. And he was perfect everywhere else. And I'm sorry, he missed one of 5 free throws. So he was 4 for 5 from the line. But it was an incredible masterclass in the first half, we weren't getting him the ball. He had 14 points and 7 rebounds or 6 rebounds or something like that in the first half. And it just didn't feel like we were getting him the ball. And now in the second half, he was more assertive. We were more diligent in finding him, and he made them pay every single time. There was just no stopping Cam whenever he got the ball. And on the rare times that they did try to stop him, he was able to find a teammate for a jumper or for a 3-pointer or even get to the foul line. So I'm really those two guys on offense paired with Slim. Let's talk about Slim too. 23 points, 6 rebounds, 1 block, and 4 steals. Those 3 guys were on the broadcast right before we started recording. They said, take your pick who it is, but it was Batman, Robin, and Alfred, just helping them out, right? each one of those guys had a purpose on offense, and they all were able to execute down the stretch.
We should not let Isaiah Evans's game get lost in the shuffle, especially because I think we would have been all too accustomed to that fast start that he had, the 8 points in the first 5 minutes. Then he went ice cold. And I think we would have been, okay, Slim's gone. Slim's out of the flow to game. And there's been too many games where that's happened. He's gone ice cold over a stretch and he sort of lost engagement with the flow of the game. That didn't happen today. And the reason it didn't happen was because he was attacking the rim and attacking the best shot, not only his threes. He took one really bad heat check in the first half. That was, could have been part of the bad if things had gone a different way. In the second half, though, he was taking what the defense gave him. When they were closing out hard, he attacked, and not only was he getting shots at the rim, and he was doing a better job, just like Caleb, of finishing at the rim strong. But by getting that penetration, he was leading to the ball rotation that got other guys open. That was something that was, again, something that's been missing from his game that we've seen flashes of. We saw it for a prolonged stretch in that second half, and that's something that, again, all too easy, all too familiar for Isaiah Evans to sort of drift into the background once he goes cold. Give him a lot of credit for battling back from that cold streak to end the first half to be that third guy, the third head of the Hydra in that second half.
There is one play that was my play of the game until a better one materialized a little bit later in the game. But around the 11:46 mark of the second half, Caleb Foster has the ball at the top of the key, and he tries to find somebody to pass to, and he ends up finding a Slim, who's kind of cutting across the 3-point line at the top of the key. So he kind of passes to him in stride, and Slim decided, okay, I'm just going to drive the lane. He sees two guys in front of him, and he goes, I'm just going to split these two. Instead of pulling up, there was a couple times where he pulled up for a jumper, like right at the free throw line. You're like, okay, that's fine. But this time he said, I'm just going to split these two. And I believe it was Kayshawn Pryor ended up bumping him as he went to the rack. He lays it in, and he goes up and he looks right in the camera, and he kind of points at his wrist as to say, it's time, right? It's time for us to get going here. And that was a huge, huge play, but he had a bunch of them throughout the second half.
So I want to make sure we don't lose out on something in the good, which is the defensive effort in the second half. And
that was my next thing. Yep.
I want to highlight something that I think probably could go under the radar too easily in this game, which was there's going to be a lot of talk about second half adjustments in this game. I don't think there was that much of a second half adjustment, and here's why. It seemed like from the tip that Jon Scheyer's defensive strategy was Louisville likes to shoot threes. Okay, we're going to make their worst three-point shooters take those threes. In the first half, that came back to bite us when Ali Khalifa, who's a guy who shoots 25% from three, who doesn't make a bunch, makes 4 threes. Okay, that's going to happen. In the second half, the same thing was happening where we were forcing Connie Roofs, the guy who shoots about 25%, to take threes. We were forcing Kayshawn Pryor, another guy who shoots in the 20s, to take a bunch of threes. And the game plan was make McNeely take contested threes. He only took 5 threes the entire game. Mm-hmm. And make Conwell, who's was amazing, in another universe, this game is his game. Make him take contested threes. In the first half, that didn't work because the Duke defense was not guarding Conwell the way I think Jon Scheyer intended to. A lot of that was on Dame Sarr. Well, Dame Sarr had to have gotten the riot act read to him in the halftime, because in the second half, again, I don't think the game plan changed. I think what happened was Jon Scheyer told Dame Sarr, you make sure he doesn't get an open three the rest of this game. And Dame Sarr said, yes, sir, and stuck to him like glue. And that was what was needed for that game plan to work, was make Conwell have to work incredibly, incredibly hard to get his shots. And he still got his shots. He still got his buckets in the second half. But when he has to work that hard and you're daring subpar three-point shooters to shoot, which they will in Pat Kelsey's system, that's what Duke wanted to do. I give Dame Sarr all the credit in the world for responding the way he did, going from, I think, one of the worst, individual first half defensive performances I've seen in a while to one of the best, second half defensive individual performances I've seen in a while. You also got to give John Shire a lot of credit for sticking to his guns and saying, this is an execution issue, not a game plan issue. Ali Khalifa is not going to shoot 4 for 4 from 3 in the second half. If we execute better, if we emphasize, we simplify the game plan for Dame Sarr and use him to our advantage, we've got what we want in this matchup, and it worked.
I have to disagree with you slightly because I feel like at halftime, John Shire gave them the speech that Coach Yost gave the Titans in that playoff game where he's like, "You blitz all night." Like he basically was like, "Dame, if he makes another three, I'm taking every last one of you got." Right, and again, they took it personally. Like these guys came out and they had a chip on their shoulder. They probably heard people chirping at the Yum Center. It was loud. It was boisterous. It was full. And in the first half, they were all over him. And as you mentioned, there were different things that were happening. Ali Khalifa was perfect in this game. He was 4 for 4 in the first half. And at halftime, Pat Kelsey was being interviewed. He was like, well, they're leaving Ali Khalifa open and because he's our worst shooter and he's hitting 4 for 4. I hope that continues in the second half. To his credit, it did. He only took one more. And I think he hit a 2. But
he made that meaningless 3 right at the end.
The meaningless 3 at the end, yeah. But it was, he had a perfect game, but in the first half, it was exacerbated by the fact that Conwell was getting his shots too. And you mentioned Isaac McNeely. He was, I want to say most of his shots, took 5 threes. I think 4 of them were from like 30 feet or more. Like
they were contested. He had one open 3, which I think was a scramble drill off an offensive rebound. Yep. Every other shot he took was contested. And again, that was very obviously part of the game plan. And that worked. The shutdown Isaac McNeely part of the game plan worked for 95% of the game. It was a shutdown Ryan Conwell part of the game plan that wasn't executed in the first half, but it was executed at perfection in the second half.
But I think the one thing that was going on was in the first half, and I think you were talking with Jason about this in our chat. You mentioned that every time the ball was kind of shuffled over and there was some sort of pick, there was a switch.
Yes.
And every time Dame Sarr switched, something bad happened. In the second half, I'm sure John Shire was like, you don't worry on defense, don't worry about nothing. Don't worry about rebounding, don't worry about getting steals, don't worry about blocks, don't worry about none of that. Your job is Conwell. That's your job. And just let him go. And to his credit, Dame responded. If you saw him, it was again like white on rice. Saw milk on a paper plate in a snowstorm. He was able to hang on to him, stay on him, and make it where even if Conwell got the ball, he turned it. He's 6'7", tall and 7'3" wide of Dame Sarr waiting for him. And that because he knew that if Conwell was not able to get the ball to other guys, and with Mikael Brown Jr. out, who's normally the main distributor and scorer, like with Conwell being taken out, your two heads of the snake are gone. One's on the bench hurt, the other one's in the game immediately, basically ineffective. And Dame Sarr did a great job, and where he didn't in the second half, Malik Brown was there to clean it up. And Malik Brown was there to get again, don't worry about, Dame, don't worry about the steals. Don't worry about the blocks. Malik, you worry about the steals. You worry about the blocks. And again, Malik was like, cool. And he was able to get deflections. He's able to start steals. Caleb Foster got in on the action. Isaiah Evans had 4 steals, and a lot of them were probably deflections where, Malik starts the play by making it just altering whatever pass it was, and Slim was able to get a hand on it and pick up the ball and go the other way. But it was, again, it was a lot of people said the word masterclass. I don't know if it was a masterclass, but it was I definitely paid attention and I took notes, and I'm sure the rest of the ACC did too.
I also don't want to forget that Dame's offensive performance was stealthily good in the second half as well, because he did what he played under control. He only scored, I think, 2 points. He only had that last bucket, which I'm glad he did. But he stopped forcing things in the second half. You could see him pressing in the first half. You could see him saying, I've got this matchup. I've got to take my man. And his strength is not yet finishing at the rim. Dame dialed it back a little bit in the second half. He missed a couple of threes, but he was taking the good threes he should take. But he was also saying, I'm going to make the pass when I need to. One of the key fast breaks in the second half, Malik got a steal, outletted it to Dame, and Dame's got a one-on-one, and I'm thinking, oh crap, Dame's going to force this. We've seen this movie before. Instead, he slowed up. He waited for the Cam Boozer trail. Cam got the ball with a head of steam. I'll take that matchup 99 times out of 100. That was, again, that was a light bulb moment where Dame said, okay, there is a smart basketball play to be made here that isn't, I just go be more athletic than the other guy. That was, I think, a huge moment, and that's the complementary offense that we need from him to keep his defense on the floor. Dame Sarr does not need to score 10 points a game. He doesn't even need to score 6, 7, 8 points a game. But he needs to be making the right plays offensively so that he can stay on the court for his defense. And he did that in the second half. He certainly didn't in the first.
The last thing I have in the good is more of an overarching thing about the second half, and that's credit to everybody in blue. I mean, again, at halftime, I'm watching the halftime report with Seth Greenberg and Jay Williams. And Jay Williams is like, "Hey, everybody who is, part of the Brotherhood is texting me, and they're saying passion is missing. There's no passion on this team. There's no intensity. There's no sense of urgency." Louisville, to their credit, came out and they wanted to put on a show, and they did. Right? They put on a show. Ali Khalifa was leading the charge by making his shots, but Conwell was there and other guys were stepping up too. And that crowd was fired up because of it, and they should have been. But this wasn't, again, it wasn't a fast return for us. It wasn't us storming back with a 15-0 lead to take the lead and never look back. We had to crawl our way back. We had to fight our way back tooth and nail, inch by inch, until finally we took the lead. And even then, we kind of relinquished it for a couple of possessions. Then we got it back. And at that point, it was, stop here, make on the other end. Stop here, make free throws on the other end. Just slowly but surely, we were able to catch up. But tenacity was on the menu in the second half, and we were feasting on that because that was what was killing us in the first half. We didn't have that. And we found it at halftime. Whichever manager put in the locker room for us to take back out in the second half, the Michael Secret stuff, like, terrific. But that was why this team ended up winning by 11 on the road after being down 12 in the first half, with signs of it being more like a 20-point deficit rather than a Duke win.
Yeah. This was not a comeback where Duke goes on a blitzkrieg 10-0 run and all of a sudden that half-time lead disappears. Like you said, it was slowly chipping away. It was a concerted entire half of dominance, not a get this back to even and then ride it out. I think that's what makes it all the more impressive. The fact that Duke just completely outplayed Louisville by a 20-point margin over the duration of the second half. I think that was even more impressive than if, it was some crazy second half comeback. If there was a crazy 15-0 run, there was the reason that Duke came back. No, Duke finally played its brand of basketball for a full 20 minutes. And we saw that when Duke plays its brand of basketball, it can go into a hostile environment against a top 25 team, even without Mikal Brown. Louisville's a top 25 team, and beat them handily. And that's what Duke fans had been wringing their hands over the last 4 games with these last 4 very, very subpar efforts. We just saw the Duke team that had everyone so excited during the 11-0 start.
We were down 9 at the half. We win by 11. As you mentioned, we outscored them 46-26 in the second half. That's a point a minute. Literally, that's what this game felt like. Every minute you look, you're like, oh, we're that much closer. Oh, okay. All right, we're that much closer. That's what this game was. And then finally, I think I texted my friends we're really down, only down 1. And then we took the lead, and it's just like what a absolute. And then from there again, even when we took the lead and never looked back, there was maybe a little mini stretch where we scored 7 points in a row. But then Louisville would hit a 3 to kind of chip into that. But again, when you look back at it, it was like, okay, we're up 4. Let's see if we can get up 5. All right, we're up 5. Let's see if we can get up 6. And we just kept doing the things we need to do. Execution was key in that second half on both offense and defense. We needed a lot of people to contribute, and they did. And I'm super, super glad we got this win, but I'm also glad that this is a win that we can learn lessons from. Last word to you before we take a break.
It'll be critical that this Duke team learns the lessons like you said. Duke will lose a game that it should win if it continues to play poorly for the first 10 minutes of every game. I think everyone in that Duke locker room knows that. I think it's much better to learn that lesson from a win than in a loss, but I'm sort of foreshadowing the bad here, doing a little bit of stick around after the break, but that has got to change for this team.
Well, we will definitely talk about it, but as you mentioned, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the DBR podcast.
All right, folks, new year, bigger goals, no time to cook? Factor makes it easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you can eat well without the shopping or the cooking.
Factor meals are always fresh and never frozen meals that are ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. With over 100 rotating weekly meals, including options like high protein, calorie smart, or even a Mediterranean diet, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Plus, the new Muscle Pro collection supports strength and recovery, and they're delicious, which is the most important part.
Yes, it is, Donald. Hey, folks, head to factormeals.com/DukeBB50off. Again, use that code DukeBB50off to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for a year. That offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthy eating easier with Factor.
All right, we are back, and we turn our attentions to the things to improve. And let's be clear, there's a lot to improve in this game. That first half, most especially. But I want to start with this, and this is a weird place to start. This game was one where two teams entered that are known for creating off of the pass. And in the first half, in that whole first half, Duke had 2 assists. We had 9 in total in this game. And it felt like this was a game where, and I don't want to say it's hero ball, but there was a lot of one-on-one action that was being played. And it was in response to Louisville coming out and playing the way they did to start the game. There was a lot of, can I make up 10 points in one possession type of plays. And it's not hero ball, but it's definitely, we were abandoning whatever game plan that we established, because I promise you it didn't include only having 2 assists in the first half. Now, we missed a lot of shots. That contributes to that. We did have some plays that ended in misses. We had one possession where, we had 4 bites at the apple. We missed 4 threes in one possession. We had 3 offensive rebounds. We did such a great job at keeping, and I believe that was early in the second half too. Like, we just had so many chances on that play to be like, okay, this is going to end in some points, and this is going to be a great hustle play that I'll talk about probably on play of the game. Instead, it wasn't, and they had to figure out a way to do it. But the slow start that we had, combined with losing guys on defense, combined with letting Ali Khalifa go off on you, which I guess you normally would say, yeah, that's fine. But at a certain point, you don't want to be the team that focuses so much on one guy not beating you that the other 4 do. And that's what was happening in the first half.
So you alluded to this, when we were, texting back and forth during the game. I was pulling my hair out over Dame Sarr's performance in that first half. As great as he was in the second half, as I was taking my notes, I noted, I think, 4 possessions in the span of 5-6 minutes where there was a screen, there was a switch. Dame very obviously went with the wrong man on the switch, and all of a sudden there was a wide open 3, or there was a wide open pass that led to a ball rotation that led to an open shot. That happened way too often for a Duke defense. Period. End of story. I give Dame all of the freaking credit in the world for turning that around in the second half. I give John Shire a heck of a lot of credit for making those tweaks to say, Dame, you're not worrying about switching anymore. You're staying on Ryan Conwell and you're making his life miserable. But there is another universe where we're talking a lot more about how, I'm going to use the word putrid, that defensive performance was in the first half. And it was a putrid defensive performance, not because Ali Khalifa had 4 for 4 from three. If that happens, Louisville has a horseshoe stuck up nowhere. Sometimes that happens. But Ryan Conwell getting the types of looks he was getting. Isaac McNeely didn't have as many, but Hadley was also getting open threes. The guys who are Woolley, the guys who are on the scouting report is you don't let these guys get open threes. We're getting these open looks. Cam Boozer also, I have to mention, he was not blameless here as well. He was playing way too much drop coverage. It was over exaggerating that drop coverage, especially against a team that we know, every stat says they are going to shoot the three. Yes, Cam Boozer and Pat Gongba play drop coverage. That's part of our identity. But you have to know the scouting report. You have to know the opposition and make the adjustments necessary so that that drop coverage isn't so easy to be taken advantage of. They made those adjustments in the second half, but it was glaringly bad in the first half.
And this is something that's happened over the last few games. You have to know what their scouting report is on you, right? Like, you have to know that they're trying to set up a position or an opportunity where somebody is in the corner where the only person closest to them is Cam Boozer or Pat Gongba, who's going to play that drop coverage, right? And it means they have more ground to cover. And yes, they can cover it. But if they are hesitant in any way at getting out there to cover the three, they're shooting over top of them. And we've seen that time and time again over the last few games where teams will sit there. And this is not to say that they're bad perimeter defenders. I think once they get on the guy, they are. But there's definitely times where we kind of say, hey, stay in the paint and let's see how our rotation is messing up those assignments or messing up those switches. You mentioned Dame Sarr with the switch. So that happens, and that's how you get an Ali Khalifa shooting 4 threes and being wide open every time he does. That's why you see guys who feel like they can, is Cam Boozer? Like, they shouldn't feel like because Cam is the one coming out to guard them that they have open season to shoot. Like that's where the rotations need to be well, and also we need to be quicker to those closeouts. Not just Cam, not just Pat, but everybody. There was just a step slower in the first half, and again, that's all due credit again to Louisville for coming out on fire, for coming out with intensity, for coming out with the passion and their fans kind of fueling them. We didn't have that. We didn't have that mojo. And on the road, over the last couple of games, hopefully they have learned the lesson that if you do that against a good team, they have the tools to take you out. And you can't rely on second half surges to win all these ball games. That is going to catch up with us. So we need to figure out a way to start out. And again, it doesn't mean start out shooting 85% from the floor, but it does mean stifle whatever momentum that any team can create in those first 5 to 10 minutes.
You brought up Pat Gongba's name. I think we have to talk a little bit about his performance, which was problematic to say the least. First things first, yes, what Keyshawn Pryor did was a punk move, but you can't respond. You can't react. That game could have flipped on the fact that Pat Gongba had 2 fouls right away and immediately got his third. That is something that as a sophomore, as someone who's been around the program, you have to be smarter than that. But more problematic for me was how Pat played after he got his third foul. John Shire had to put him back in for a spurt at the end of the first half to keep Cam Boozer from getting his third foul, to give Malik Brown a rest. And Pat basically just decided, I can't get my 4th foul, so I'm basically not going to play. He essentially just played defense like a statue and said, the most important thing is for me to not get a foul, even if I let a wide open layup go by. That's not how you play with fouls. You change the way you play defense. You maybe don't contest. You maybe don't go for the block, but you still play defense and you still play hard and you still play with effort. And it seemed like Pat was just trying to run out the clock and without getting his 4th foul. That really, really bugged me. I give Pat credit for coming back and again could have laid down and died with that subpar performance. He did play a better second half. He had that beautiful dunk on the short roll lob, what I call the Sion James, the Kam Knipple, the Kaman Malawach play. That was today it was Caleb to Cam to Pat. That's one of John Shire's specialties. That was a beautiful play, perfectly executed at a really important time. But Pat has to get playing smarter so that he can be impacting games for longer stretches. That's what Duke needs from its starting center.
I am not mad or at least as mad at the double technical because it's hard, right? And
oh yeah, it's much easier said than done to not react to that.
It's much
say that
to not react to
that.
Kayshawn Pryor literally walking right up to him and then just like headbutting him in the chest, like. And like if I'm the ref, I know what the letter of the law probably says. Just they probably thought they were doing both teams a service by saying just give them double technicals and it's no harm, no foul.
Which aside, that is one of the dumbest rules in basketball that needs to get getting rid of, because smart opponents can take advantage of that and say, "Oh, I can have my worst player get one of those double techs. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I get a foul on Cam Boozer. That's so much more important." An unscrupulous coach is going to take advantage of that sooner rather than later. So get that out of the dang game.
And Kayshawn Pryor had played 8 minutes and with the exception of a rebound and a turnover, basically had $1 trillion, right? His job was to go in there and see if he can't ruffle some feathers. And again, I'm not as mad at Pat for that. What I am mad at Pat for was the ensuing possession where we had the ball, we kept maintaining the ball because it was basically a no harm, no foul double technical, and then he immediately gets an offensive foul 10 seconds later when he should know that the referees just reviewed a play that involved him, gave him a technical along with the other guy, and they were both guarding each other. So the scrutiny is even more increased and heightened because those guys are like, hey, these two guys just tangled. Like the last thing I need is for somebody to get hurt again because they scrap again. So they were looking for any reason to blow the whistle, and he gave them a reason almost immediately. That's where you need to be like, that was not a smart play, and he's played smarter than that. Now, like you said, he did come back and play a little bit better, but he kind of was pushed to the bench mainly because of his 4 fouls, but also because of Dame Sarr and Malik Brown and Cam Boozer and Slim and Caleb just were the lineup. And those guys, especially those last 3, like they weren't coming out.
And I don't think they did. I think Isaiah, Cephas, and Cam each played full 20 minutes in the second half.
They're the only guys that played over 30 minutes in the entire game, and I know they didn't sit for much in the first half. So yes, they did not sit in the second half. And I think Pat needs to learn that guys are going to do that, especially those like that 6th center off the bench. His job is to come in and see if he can mess with you. And again, it's difficult to sit there and see somebody headbutt you, walk up to you and headbutt you in the chest and not do anything. But that's what they're asking you to do, is to back up or at least point to the ref and go, hey man, like this can't happen. You can't let him just walk up and do this to me. Because he knows that he's important to this team and the rest of the ACC knows that he's important to Duke. Like he needs to be able to withstand that and not let that get to his head.
And one of the things that was a storyline going into this game, you guys mentioned it on the preview, was that at any point in time, Louisville was really only going to have one guy on the court that could defend Cam and Pat. So essentially, either Cam or Pat was always going to have a mismatch one way or the other. And entering the game, I thought that was Duke's advantage that was going to win them the game. But that 3rd foul nullified that immediately. It took Pat out of the game. Malik is not the offensive threat Pat is. And then it said, okay, we can put our biggest body on Cam Boozer. I think that was part of why the offense was so stagnant for that last 10 minutes of the first half, because I think the game plan was to power it into the paint with Pat and Cam, whoever had the mismatch. We saw that a bit in the first few minutes, and Pat missed some shots that I think he makes 9 times out of 10. That sort of, got exacerbated down the line. But again, Pat has to know how important he is to this team. He has to play smarter with his fouls, because we will lose games if Pat Gongba has 3 fouls 10 minutes into the game. We will lose a game this year if that keeps happening.
And again, I think the first half mainly the entire first half, hopefully, and I think we talked about this quickly, is hopefully that switch that we turned on in the second half is us switching off the bad play of the last 4 games, or at least 3.5 games, and saying, we're done with that. Let's move forward. And now we have turned a leaf and we're back to the old November, early December efficiency of playing Duke basketball. And I mean, look, Louisville is a tough opponent, like we said, probably the second best team in the ACC at their home, the biggest gym in college basketball, and we were able to somehow walk out of there with an 11-point win. Let's focus on that part, and let's take that win, learn the lessons that we need to learn, and move forward, because SMU's coming to town on Saturday, and they're going to be ready for us too. And Boopy Miller is a guy that we need to key in on. We will talk about that later this week. Before we get out of here, let's talk about play of the game. Do you have a play of the game, Scott, that you thought was good?
I do, and I think it was fitting that Dame Sarr was a key part of the play of the game, because so much of his efforts were under the radar defensive efforts. But the way that he saved Caleb's desperation heave from behind half court when the 10-second violation was about to go off, the pass to Dame, who uses his freakish length and athleticism, drop it off to Malik, get it to Cam for that dunk. That was the moment where, again, I think that was, a 6-point lead going to 8 or an 8-point lead going to 10. That was the moment where I felt, okay, we have control of this game. It reminded me, I on the Vibes podcast, I drew parallels to, Brian Zubek coming out against Maryland, sort of what Caleb did. That play reminded me of the awesome triple pass against Maryland back in 2010 that led to one of Gerald Henderson's patented slams, of just how the heck did that craziness just work? Oh, our best player now has the ball right in front of the rim. That was brilliant, and I think it's only fitting, again, for as much slander I just put on Dame's name for his first half effort, it's only fitting that he gets to play the game from my book, because he was transcendent in the second half. Just as transcendent in the second half as he was poor in the first half.
Yeah, that was my play of the game. That whole sequence.
There we go.
Again, Caleb, I think, again, Caleb knowing that there's 9 seconds, and I don't even know how he saw Dame and knew that Dame was in a position to maybe even catch the ball, or if he was just like, Dame might do something, but he's going to do something with it over there on that side of the floor.
That's what was so brilliant about the play, is that the worst case scenario from that play is that the ball's out of bounds underneath Louisville's basket. There's no scenario where that turns into a pick six for Louisville from a forced pass. I'm not sure if that actually went through Cephas's head or not. I'm sure he'll say that after the fact. But that ended up being, low-key part of the brilliance of that play, was having the headiness to say, okay, we just can't have a momentum-turning dunk here. And it ended up being one, but for us.
Yeah, and, I mean, again, Dame using his body, contorting his body to stay in bounds, catch the ball in one fell swoop, pass it off, basically alley-oop pass it to Malik, who then quickly sees, oh, someone else is on the floor. Cam. Yeah, let me get the ball to Cam. And Cam laying it in to put us up 9 points. But then on the other end, like, we got another defensive stop, and then all of a sudden it was an 11-point lead, and you're just like, holy hell. What, like, that play just summed up what the turnaround was, because that is not a play you imagined would be something that Duke could do during that first half, when we were sitting there probably thinking how we're gonna address the stink. Now we don't have to. Now we can take the win. We can focus on the positive. We can work the stink out and move forward. But that was a play that just encapsulated that second half. That will do it for this episode of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Again, Donald and Scott, we will be back at some point later this week. We will preview the upcoming game back in Cameron on Saturday against SMU. But until then, it is now time for the Duke Band to play us out and take us home.